Muhammad Ali met her on a Thursday. He proposed on Friday. They were married exactly 1 month later. For 17 months, Cassius Clay experienced the only true love of his life, according to his own brother. Then, the Nation of Islam forced him to choose between his wife and his faith. The note he sent her after the divorce said 5 words that would haunt him forever. "You traded heaven for hell, baby." This is the story of the love Muhammad Ali never got over and the marriage that broke his heart. It was July 1964. 22-year-old Cassius Clay had just shocked the world by defeating Sonny Liston to become the heavyweight champion. He'd converted to Islam and changed his name to Muhammad Ali. He was famous, wealthy, controversial, and completely unprepared for what was about to happen to his heart. Herbert Muhammad, who had become Ali's longtime manager and who was the son of Nation of Islam leader Elijah Muhammad, was playing matchmaker. He knew a woman he thought would be perfect for the young champion. Her name was Sanji Roy. She was 23 years old, stunningly beautiful, and working as a cocktail waitress at a Chicago nightclub. Herbert arranged for them to meet. The moment Ali walked into that room and saw Sanji, everything changed. She wasn't like anyone he'd ever met. Sanji was sophisticated, glamorous, and confident. She wore fashionable clothes, makeup, and carried herself with an elegance that took Ali's breath away. She was everything the Nation of Islam taught him to avoid, and he was immediately, hopelessly in love. "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," Ali told her within minutes of meeting. Sanji laughed. She'd heard pickup lines before. She knew who Cassius Clay was. Everyone did. But she wasn't impressed by fame. She'd grown up in Chicago, had seen plenty of famous men, and knew most of them were more interested in conquest than connection. But Ali was different. He wasn't trying to be smooth or cool. He was genuine, almost childlike in his enthusiasm. "I'm serious," he insisted. "I've never felt like this before. I want to marry you." Sanji thought he was joking. They'd known each other for less than an hour. "You don't even know me," she said. "How can you want to marry me?" "I know everything I need to know," Ali said. "You're beautiful, you're smart, you make me feel like nobody else has ever made me feel. Marry me." It was Thursday. By Friday, Ali had asked her again, and again, and again. He was relentless, calling her constantly, showing up at the nightclub where she worked, sending flowers, writing poems. Sanji found it both overwhelming and charming. This wasn't a man playing games. This was a man who decided what he wanted and was pursuing it with the same single-minded determination that had made him heavyweight champion. "Okay," Sanji finally said after a week of constant proposals. "I'll marry you, but you need to slow down. We need time to plan a wedding, to get to know each other better, to do this right." Ali agreed. They'd take their time, they'd do it right. They were married exactly 1 month after they met, on August 14, 1964. The wedding was small and quick. Ali's parents were there, some friends from the Nation of Islam attended, though many seemed uncomfortable. Sanji wore a fashionable dress and makeup, her hair styled beautifully. She looked like a movie star. Ali couldn't take his eyes off her. When they exchanged vows, when he put the ring on her finger, and when he kissed his bride, Ali felt like the luckiest man in the world. He'd won the heavyweight champion and married the woman of his dreams all within 6 months. Life was perfect. The problem started almost immediately. The Nation of Islam had very strict rules about how women should dress and behave. Women were expected to wear modest clothing that covered their arms and legs. No makeup, no jewelry beyond a wedding ring. Hair covered or worn naturally, not styled or straightened. The nation taught that Western fashion and beauty standards were tools of white oppression, designed to make black women hate their natural selves. Sanji had grown up in a different world. She loved fashion. She loved makeup. She loved expressing herself through her appearance. When Nation of Islam officials told Ali that his wife needed to change how she dressed, Ali tried to explain it to Sanji. "Baby, the nation has rules," he said. "Wives of brothers in the nation, they dress modestly. They don't wear makeup. It's about respect for our faith." Sanji looked at her husband like he'd lost his mind. "You married me knowing exactly how I dress," she said. "You said you loved everything about me. Now you want me to change?" Ali tried to explain that it wasn't about her personally. It was about following the teachings of Elijah Muhammad. It was about being part of the nation. But to Sanji, it felt like a bait and switch. Ali had pursued her, had proposed to her, had married her exactly as she was. Now he wanted her to become someone else. "I'm not changing," Sanji said. "If you wanted a wife who dressed like that, you should have married someone from the nation. You married me." Ali tried to reason with her. He tried to explain. He tried to convince her that this was important to him. But Sanji wouldn't budge. She was who she was. She lived her whole life expressing herself through her appearance. She wasn't going to give that up, not even for the heavyweight champion of the world. The tension escalated. Every time they went to a Nation of Islam event, Sanji's appearance caused problems. The other wives would look at her disapprovingly. Officials would pull Ali aside and tell him he needed to get his wife under control. Elijah Muhammad himself commented that Ali's wife didn't look like a proper Muslim woman. The pressure on Ali was enormous. The nation wasn't just his faith. It was his entire social structure, his support system, his family. Disappointing Elijah Muhammad felt like disappointing God. But Ali loved Sanji. Despite the conflict, despite the pressure, despite everything, he was crazy about his wife. When they were alone together, when they could just be a married couple without the weight of the nation's expectations, they were happy. Sanji made Ali laugh. She challenged him intellectually. She didn't treat him like a celebrity or a champion. She treated him like a man, like her husband, and Ali loved that. She was the only woman who ever really knew him, Ali's brother Rahman would say years later. She saw past the image, past the bravado, past everything. She knew the real Cassius, and she loved him for who he actually was, not who everyone wanted him to be. But the Nation of Islam wouldn't relent. The pressure intensified. Officials told Ali that his marriage was becoming a problem. His wife's refusal to follow the nation's guidelines was making him look weak. How could he be a leader in the community if he couldn't even control his own household? The word control infuriated Sanji. "I'm not a dog to be controlled," she told Ali during one of their increasingly frequent arguments. "I'm your wife. I'm supposed to be your partner, your equal, but you're treating me like property that needs to be managed." Ali tried to explain that it wasn't about control. It was about unity, about both of them following the same path. But Sanji saw it differently. To her, it was about Ali choosing his religion over his wife, choosing the approval of other men over his marriage. For over a year they struggled. They'd have good days where it seemed like maybe they could find a compromise, maybe they could make it work. Then they'd have bad days where Sanji would show up to an event wearing makeup and a fashionable dress, and the whispers would start again, and Ali would get pulled aside again, and another fight would erupt. She wouldn't do what she was supposed to do, Ali would later say, trying to justify what happened. She wore lipstick, she went into bars, she dressed in clothes that were revealing and didn't look right. But underneath the religious justifications, there was heartbreak. Ali loved Sanji. He just loved the Nation of Islam more. Or maybe he was just more afraid of losing the nation than he was of losing Sanji. In January 1966, just 17 months after their wedding, Ali filed for divorce. The decision devastated both of them. Sanji didn't want the marriage to end. She was willing to compromise on some things, but not her fundamental identity. Ali didn't want it to end either. But the pressure from the nation had become unbearable. Elijah Muhammad had made it clear the marriage needed to end, or Ali's position in the nation would be jeopardized. The divorce proceedings were quick and cold. There were no children to complicate things, no shared property beyond what could be easily divided, just two people who loved each other, being torn apart by forces bigger than both of them. Just before the divorce was finalized, Ali sent Sanji a note. 5 words that captured all the pain and regret and anger and sadness of what they'd lost. You traded heaven for hell, baby. The note was cruel. It suggested that Sanji had made the choice, that she'd chosen her lipstick and her dresses over their marriage, over heaven itself. But the truth was more complicated. Sanji hadn't chosen to end the marriage. Ali had. Under pressure from the nation, under the weight of expectations he couldn't bear, Ali had chosen his faith over his wife. But blaming Sanji was easier than accepting responsibility. Years later, Rachman Ali, Muhammad's brother, would reveal something that Ali himself never publicly admitted. Sanji was his only true love. The nation made Ali divorce her, and Ali never got over it. He married other women, he had other relationships, but none of them were what he had with Sanji. She was the one. The impact of losing Sanji stayed with Ali for the rest of his life. In his subsequent marriages to Belinda Boyd, Veronica Porcher, and finally Lonnie Williams, Ali would repeat patterns that suggested he was still carrying the wound of that first love. He'd be unfaithful, he'd be distant, he'd struggle to fully commit emotionally. His brother and those close to him believed it was because he'd given his heart to Sanji, and when that marriage ended, something in Ali closed off. Sanji, for her part, struggled after the divorce. She'd fallen in love with the heavyweight champion of the world, married him in a whirlwind romance, and then been cast aside when she wouldn't conform to someone else's idea of who she should be. The rejection hurt. The note Ali sent her, "You traded heaven for hell," haunted her. She'd go on to have other relationships, but nothing that matched what she'd felt with Ali. In the years after their divorce, there were occasional attempts at reconciliation. Sanji and Ali would cross paths at events. They'd talk, carefully, painfully, both of them aware of what they'd lost. There were moments when it seemed like maybe they could try again, maybe things could be different. But the Nation of Islam still controlled Ali's life. The expectations were still there. Nothing had fundamentally changed. By the 1970s, Ali's relationship with the Nation of Islam began to shift. After Elijah Muhammad's death in 1975, Ali gradually moved toward mainstream Sunni Islam, eventually rejecting the separatist teachings of the nation. This new form of Islam was less restrictive, more tolerant, more focused on spirituality than rigid rules about appearance and behavior. Some people close to Ali believe he made this transition partly because of Sanji, because he'd come to regret letting the nation dictate his personal life. But by then, it was too late. Sanji had moved on. Ali had moved on. The window for reconciliation had closed. They'd remain part of each other's history, but they'd never be part of each other's future. Sanji Roy died in 2005. She was 65 years old. In interviews before her death, she spoke about Ali with a mixture of love and sadness. "He was my first real love," she said. "And even though it ended badly, even though he hurt me, I never stopped caring about him." You never forget your first love, especially when it burns that bright. When Ali heard about Sanji's death, those closest to him said he became very quiet and withdrawn. He didn't speak about it publicly. By then, Parkinson's disease had made speaking difficult. But his daughter Hannah said her father spent a long time looking at old photographs from that brief, intense marriage. He was remembering what had been. He was mourning what could have been. The story of Muhammad Ali and Sanji Roy is a tragedy. Not a tragedy of violence or betrayal, but a tragedy of timing and circumstance. They were two people who found each other at exactly the wrong moment. Ali was too young, too influenced by the Nation of Islam, too afraid of losing his place in the only community that had fully accepted him as a black Muslim man. Sanji was too independent, too strong-willed, too committed to being herself to conform to someone else's expectations. If they'd met 5 years later, after Ali'd matured, after he'd gained more independence from the nation, maybe it could have worked. If Sanji had been willing to compromise more, maybe they could have found middle ground. But they were who they were, when they were. And sometimes love isn't enough to overcome the obstacles that life puts in the way. The note Ali sent Sanji, "You traded heaven for hell, baby," was wrong. Neither of them traded anything. They were both just trying to be themselves in a world that demanded they be something else. Ali was trying to be a good Muslim, a good member of the nation, a good representative of his faith. Sanji was trying to be herself, to maintain her identity, to not disappear into someone else's expectations. In the end, they both lost. Ali lost the woman his brother called his only true love. Sanji lost the man who'd swept her off her feet and promised her the world. The Nation of Islam got what it wanted, a divorce that reinforced its control over Ali's life, but everyone involved paid a price. There's a lesson in their story about the danger of letting others dictate your personal relationships, about the cost of choosing institutional approval over personal happiness, about what happens when you love someone but love something else more. Ali would become the greatest boxer of all time. He'd win 3 heavyweight championships. He'd light the Olympic torch in front of 3 billion people. He'd become a global icon of courage and resistance. But he never got over Sanji Roy. According to his brother, according to those closest to him, Ali carried that regret for the rest of his life. The marriage lasted 17 months. The heartbreak lasted 50 years. If this story of love and loss moved you, share it with someone who needs to remember that the choices we make in love have consequences that last longer than we imagine. Sometimes the greatest fights we lose aren't in the ring. They're the ones we have with ourselves about who we love and what we're willing to sacrifice for that love.